It goes without saying that 2020 has been one hell of a year, but at this stage, let's just celebrate the things that went right. Because if there's one industry that largely remained unscathed from the horrors of you-know-what, it's video games. On the top tier side, we've got Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII's remake, and The Last of Us Part 2. Animal Crossing New Horizons broke Switch records for day one sales, Ghost of Tsushima channeled Zelda Breath of the Wild's HUD-discarding charms, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps might just be the finest thing on Xbox hardware since Halo 3. Downsides include the Avengers being a bit naff and Halo Infinite being delayed indefinitely, but honestly, when you take a step back and drink in the positives of what 2020 offered gaming, there is a ton to be thankful for. With that in mind, let's steer away from the spotlight-demanding titles you've already heard about and recommend some overlooked gems to play across the holiday period. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 9 best video games of 2020 you didn't play. Number 9, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. Ever wanted to live the life of a space trucker? Like a real lone wolf Han Solo type taking on whatever missions come your way, guzzling drinks at bars full of aliens and hoovering up bounties on the way to deliver your next package? Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is for you. Where the original Rebel Galaxy focused on a fairly laid-back, southern fried space trucker vibe, Outlaw injects just enough narrative pace, seeing Juno Markev on the hunt for her husband's killer, while letting you explore the cosmos to your heart's content. There's a background system of cargo and ill-gotten gains to plunder, quadrants to clear out, items to deliver, and factions to befriend. In between, you can stop by various ports, upgrading weapons, swapping ship components, or just challenging the locals to a game of pool. Brilliantly, combat is totally overhauled, letting you fire off tracking missiles and Gauss cannons while sidewinding out the way of incoming fire. Outlaw does take a beat to get going while you do basic deliveries and unlock better gear, but once it clicks, there's nothing else quite like what Double Damage have created. Number 8, Hotshot Racing. From Forza Horizon getting increasingly over the top to Burnout Paradise being remastered and soaring to the top of the UK sales chart, it feels in many ways like arcade racing is coming back. Step forward then, Hotshot Racing. Feeling like a homage and living combination of Ridge Racer, Burnout and Daytona, Sumo Digital's polygonal adjacent Hotshot Racing is just a blast. The commentator shouting checkpoint as you whiz past the competition with a nitro boost. The huge drifts where you're practically sideways flying into a corner. The last minute jockey for position as you burn past the pack in a tightly calculated move, not having to bother whatsoever with any simulation aspects of the race as you emerge victorious. Hotshot Racing is a love letter to the era of racers upended by the original Gran Turismo. They were somewhat brought back by Burnout and Need for Speed across the 2000s, but have lain dormant for practically the entire 8th generation. I personally could not be happier a dev team took this on, especially when the final product is so damn fun. Number 7, Takeshi and Hiroshi. A super neat, unique title about game design and the considerations you make for a player when developing difficulty, Takeshi and Hiroshi sees the latter hospitalized, and the former trying to let him play through a video game by faking the difficult parts so that Hiroshi has the most fun. See, as Takeshi, you're an amateur developer, trying to manufacture challenge. You want Hiroshi to be somewhat stressed, represented by a number at the top of the screen, but that can also turn into joy if you let him gain the upper hand when all luck's lost. Deciding which enemies to throw his way, how to attack, and when to lay off really puts you in a mindset adjacent to any game dev. Do you risk wounding Hiroshi severely under the proviso that you can bail him out later for an even bigger amount of joy? It's these questions that make the game fascinating, and it's a playable sensation no one else has gone anywhere near. Also, Takeshi and Hiroshi's cutscenes are done using actual puppets and stop animation. It's an adorable game with great insight into video game creation. Number 6, Raji and Ancient Epic. A ludicrously ambitious, genuinely jaw-dropping first title from newcomers Nodding Heads Games, Raji centers on the titular character journeying to save her brother from scores of shadowy demons. Wearing such beautiful Indian culture on its sleeve, Raji plays like a blend of the original God of War games alongside touches of the 2000s Prince of Persia run. You've got the wall runs and acrobatic in-combat flips of Ubisoft's titles alongside the chain combos and finishers from Sony Santa Monica. Combined, this would be recommendable enough, but it's the sheer amount of charm that comes from Nodding Heads delving into their own heritage as a proud Indian studio, elevating Raji's journey from front to back. Number 5, Deadly Premonition 2. Completely overlooked thanks to launching in an unacceptably broken state, Deadly Premonition 2 also had the uphill battle of trying to make lightning strike twice with its cult fanbase. because honestly there is no game quite like the original Deadly Premonition. Often regarded as the room of video games, Deadly Prem 1 was a tornado of old school movie quotes, Twin Peaks references, a murder mystery plot drive, and Agent Francis York Morgan being a cipher for developer Suda51's idolization of Americana. Thankfully, Deadly Prem 2 does manage to do it all over again, this time steering headlong into aping True Detective over David Lynch and giving you a multiple timeline murder to solve, with a grizzled pot-smoking Morgan in the present trying to get his head together. Thought of as the type of game that only the fans would love, I would still recommend you play the original in a heartbeat. Thankfully though, here Suda51 and Rising Star did get this together eventually. Number 4, Captain Tsubasa, Rise of the Champions. Sometimes you just need to hit a ball so hard a giant eagle made of your own sheer willpower can be conjured to see it through. It also helps if this power translates into genuinely knocking the goalkeeper off their feet when they try to get in the way. Such is what happens in every match in Captain Tsubasa, the latest in a long line of titles to adapt this legendary anime, but the first to truly nail that sense of overblown spectacle associated with its most spectacular moments. Like Dragon Ball FighterZ and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, there's something about video game engines finally catching up to the visual splendor of anime as a medium that feels phenomenal to control in real time. Captain Tsubasa operates largely on a 50-50 split for its offense and defense. Alongside powering up shots or one-off teamwork moves, you're either going to dance around an opponent or steal the ball, or you're not. These back and forths between teams become electric, the pace far faster than the likes of FIFA or Pro Evo Soccer. When that builds to a player launching an air-rupturing screamer of a shot, there have been few things more satisfying this whole year. Number 3, The Last Campfire. After the last 10 years Hello Games have had, going from arcade trials like Joe Danger to the unbelievably ambitious and still divisive No Man's Sky, you can see why they'd want to make the video game equivalent of an Exhale Come Down. The Last Campfire doesn't care about wowing you with billions of planets, nor does it care about having a sizable marketing budget. Hello Games nudged this out the door as an expert blend of Zelda-like dungeon puzzles with an adorable rounded aesthetic. Almost saying, look what we made after everything that happened, we hope you like this one. Thankfully, the game wears its influences proudly. Playable character Ember is on a quest to find more of their people, and along the way we're talking physics puzzles, perspective puzzles, item-based puzzles, and all that enjoyable comfort food feeling problem solving that define 90s and 2000s gaming. Setting out to be exactly what it looks like in advertising, and having a core theme of community through understanding and genuine warmth, Last Campfire is one hell of a continuative step for a team that really got put through the ringer. Number 2, John Wick Hex. In a move I really didn't see coming, John Wick's first tie-in game doesn't arrive as a third-person cover shooter, but instead a turn-based stat-crunching strategy game. Developed by Thomas Was Alone's Mike Bithell, the idea is to put you in the mind of Wick himself. Where should you shoot first? How much energy will a dodge roll take? Versus blowing that same allowance on a close quarters takedown and hoping that you have enough for a follow-up headshot. Weapon switching and enemy movement is key, seeing you plan each encounter in real time. Every arm drag, human shield, or knockout punch where it belongs. Sadly, John Wick Hex does stumble a little bit with animation polish. Every level shows your actions in a replay with time restored, half showing you being a calculating badass, and half watching a polygonal puppet of Wick get dragged to different points on a map. Still, there's more than enough to recommend here, and props to Bithell for going in with a completely fresh take on how to even do an action property like John Wick. And number 1, Inertial Drift. I love Inertial Drift. Easily the most original driving game I've ever played, developers Level 91 came up with a totally unique control scheme, based around using both analog sticks at once. This turns into a really complex sounding but actually super satisfying system of feathering both analog sticks alongside the brakes and acceleration, swinging cars around massive corners or through tight chicanes to nail the best lap times. Inertial Drift feels like an entirely new way to approach something as otherwise stock as a time trial, and with online multiplayer or other modes like a checkpoint-based endurance gauntlet, the developers really push your mastery of such a quirky control scheme. And those are my picks for various incredible video games of 2020 that hardly anybody actually played. Let me know your favourites down in the comments below, and please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.